our lecture. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ecology Lecture. Um, it's 7:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. Happy New Year. I believe this is probably your first class for the second semester also. So we're very excited to have you. And for today's meeting, we've set it up for us to introduce the different parameters for ecology lecture so that you are familiar with it. We're here to introduce ourselves as your faculty in charge for this plenary class, as well as give some introductory principles regarding ecology. So let's go ahead and get started. So when it comes to this lecture course, what we would like to emphasize is the application of the scientific method, particularly to make you as familiar as possible with the reasoning behind the design of both mensurative and manipulative experiments. So we know that your human biology students, a lot of you are going into the field of medicine, but we are also firm advocates of how the scientific method can be applied to different things. I mean, after all, if you've heard of science-based policymaking, there's probably science-based medicine, right? And we believe that good doctors are very much familiar with how the scientific method is implemented. Sadly, even though the scientific method is something taught as early as in primary education, there are a lot of misconceptions about it, and we see it a lot among our undergraduate students in the way they handle experiments, in the way they interpret the data that is available to them. So we like to take this opportunity to clarify with our students how exactly the scientific method works. Now, of course, since this is still an ecology class, and as far as I know, ecology is still part of the topics that are covered in NMAT, we will be covering some of those topics that will make you be more familiar with principles such as evolutionary ecology, um, population ecology, as well as systems ecology. Now, these particular avenues of ecology are very, very exciting fields of research for us scientists. But I guess in the field of medicine, and we often hear a lot of frustrated students say this, bakit ba namin kailangang aralin ng ecology? Well, if you look at these three core subtopics of ecology, I'm pretty sure you need to know how our different organ systems evolved in order to have a deeper understanding of why they're reacting a particular way to different kinds of treatments and different kinds of medicine. So it's not really the status of our bodies, of our physical forms, is not static. It's not going to be the way it is forever. And a lot of that, the things that we're doing in the field of medicine, in the field of nutrition, are actually still actively causing us to evolve. And so the more knowledgeable you are about the principles of evolutionary ecology, the less shocked you'll probably be if some of the medications that you're prescribing are no longer working for your patients. When it comes to population ecology, if you're interested in doing research in the field of medicine and seeing how different situations, different kinds of treatment are affecting large populations, then population ecology would give you the right computational tools in order for you to, for example, project what kind of world we'll be in if there are better treatments for AIDS and HIV. You'll be able to have the right quantitative tools to advocate, let's say, for free treatment of cancer in our country. So population ecology is very useful for that. And finally, systems ecology, what I love about it is it emphasizes how humans, our population, and our health is not isolated from the rest of the world. So there are certain resources such as nutrients, elements, water, energy that get passed on from um, one link of the ecosystem to another. And systems ecology will help us understand that. So um, I guess at the end of the day, if if you will allow me this Miss Universe moment, ecology is very, very important for practitioners of the medical field because it makes you realize that our health does not exist in a vacuum. And a person who has dedicated their life to the treatment of ailments and to improving the lives of people should know how the quality of our environment um, would affect the very health that they seek to preserve. So I hope you come into ecology with that lens. Hindi po kami nandito para pahirapan kayo. However, as early as now, I would like to emphasize that ecology is not a simple subject. It's not easy, mostly because whoever created the universe, God, he didn't make it simple. They didn't make it simple. So that's why it ends up being as complicated as it is. Okay? So there, that's the subject. Now, for those of you who just came in, kindly please take note of the reminder that my co-faculty has posted on the chat. Please follow the instructions on changing your display name to section dash nickname surname. Again, failure to do so will cause you to be marked absent. And with that, um, I guess I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the Ecology PLC. So one of the things that make the ecology subject very cohesive as a subject is that we don't really teach it as individuals. I am not your only teacher for this course. Sir Dennis is not your only teacher for this course. The people you see on the screen are your faculty for this course. Now, Dr. Alikwanan is currently on sabbatical, but you will definitely feel his footprint um, throughout the term because a lot of the recorded lectures that serve as the backbone for ecology was recorded by him. He is our most senior faculty within the Ecology Professional Learning Committee. Apart from that, we have Dr. Sam Mamawag. He's teaching some of the lab courses for this term. We also have Dr. Hope Swan, Sir Lawrence Robles, and Miss Hilary Orario. For this morning, um, I and Sir Dennis will have a little bit more opportunity to introduce ourselves, but you will meet the other members of the Ecology PLC perhaps in your laboratory period. So my name is Shona Camille Vince Cruz Abeledo. My field of specialization is called molecular ecology. As a scientist, my primary field of training is in molecular biology and biotechnology. I actually started out my career as a genetic engineer. Um, but this was during a time when people were a lot more close-minded about the technology. So, namundok po ako, hindi para maging rebelde, but to learn more about the environment. So I diverged from my molecular specialization from the lab. I went to the field and learned about traditional ecological knowledge management systems, which means I lived with, worked with, and studied indigenous practices and looked at its impact on the ecosystem. Um, when I finished my master's and started my PhD, under the mentorship of Dr. Menchi Lagman, you might meet her in the future for your genetics subjects. I was able to combine my training in molecular biology as well as my training in ecology and environmental science by focusing on work on population genetics on the organism called the mangrove crab or alimango. I know it's too early to talk about alimango. It's because it's, I think it's quite heavy food, pero ang sarap niya. Definitely one of our more high value commodities in the Philippines. And the work that we do is dedicated into managing a lot of these aquaculture resources more efficiently and more sustainably. But apart from that, I've started working on other marine organisms, marine invertebrates, particularly jellyfish and the crown of thorns starfish. I've been teaching at the De La Salle University since 2007, immediately after I finished college. And I guess I consider myself blessed and lucky that my first my first choice as a job ended up being something I could fall in love with. And so many years later, I'm still here. But right now, I would like to take this opportunity to give the floor to Sir Dennis, so that he can also introduce himself to you. Sir Dennis?
Yes, thank you, Doc Chona. Good morning and Happy New Year to the takers of ECOLAPP sa NO1 and NO2. So just to introduce myself, my name is Dennis Dolohan. The ENP there is not part of my name, but a title for professional uh, a degree in the profession. No, by law we are required to make the title appear in any professional or formal forum. So it is not emergency nurse practitioner, but it is environmental planner. So uh, uh, I had been in the field of infrastructure projects, the environmental component of any infrastructure projects, both private and public undertakings in the Philippines before I took a hiatus and since pandemic, no, and turn around to the academic teaching na lang muna for now. But nevertheless, I am happy to share my experience to the young ones, no, especially taking environmental classes. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you
I
for
would
that.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you for that, Sir Dennis. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sam Mamawag. Doc Sam, maybe you can give a short hi or introduction to our students since you're here.
Hello, good morning. Sorry, I can't open my video. I'm still not prepared. Sorry. My section is NO1A, and I'm not sure if everyone is here in the lecture schedule. So anyway, I'm Dr. Sama Mawag, and I'm also handling two laboratory courses for ecology, and I hope that we'll be seeing each other in regularly in the next meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Doc Sam. So for once again for the other members of the Ecology PLC, we're pretty sure you'll meet them sooner or later in your laboratory activities or maybe in some of our lecture activities as well. So moving forward, just like all of your subjects here at the LaSalle University, we are guided by the six expected LaSallian graduate attributes. So a lot of our activities in lecture are designed in order to train you to be culturally sensitive, critical, and creative thinkers. And this is particularly useful in the field of ecology because a lot of the activities that we do as humans that affect the ecosystem, um, it's not a black and white issue na something that you do is good, something that you do is bad. A lot of the things that we do are often for our survival, and yet what we need to ask ourselves is how to make them sustainable. What I've noticed in the field of environmental advocacy, however, is a lot of people are so quick to condemn certain actions without looking at it with a culturally sensitive lens, meaning we always have to ask ourselves, what is the reason why certain groups of people are doing it? Is it always greed? Is it always ignorance? Is it a different kind of understanding of the world? And so, a lot of the lectures and activities that we've prepared for you for the term hopefully will allow you to be able to dig deeper and think towards that direction. We also want you to become effective communicators. And that's why, for those of you who have browsed our Animo space, our synchronous sessions are mostly designed for consultations, for you to be able to ask questions about the subject rather than be passive learners. Perhaps today will be the most lecture heavy lecture session that we have because we're introducing the course. But after our meeting today, um you guys will be on the platform. You will be the ones asking the questions, explaining to us how you understood certain concepts. And I think one thing I would like to remind everybody about being an effective communicator is that part of it is knowing how to ask for help. So like I mentioned earlier, ecology is not a simple subject. It contains a lot of complexities that might make you feel like it's very difficult at the start. So you need to tell us when you need help so that we can help you. Our goal here is not to terrorize you or to make you regret going into the field of medicine. Our goal here is to help you learn and to train you to become better scientists and also hopefully better doctors in the future. Now, the third is to be reflective lifelong learners and competent self-nurturers. Um, we've been teaching pre-med students for a long time, and a lot of the way we teach the subject is designed to help you prepare with how things are going to be in med school and how things are going to be in the real world. And being a lifelong learner is so useful because what you'll come to realize is that a lot of the times the lessons that we memorize when we're in college, when we're in high school, they end up being obsolete by the time we're professionals. And so, what we should be learning as students would be how to learn. You have to go on a journey with yourself to figure out how do I learn new information better. Because if we want to be successful in whatever field we want to explore, we need to learn effectively. And so there are a lot of instances in this course where we are expecting you to figure out how to best learn. Of course, again, we're here to be guides on your sides. I know that rhymes and is a little cringe. But yeah, at the end of it, we're here to perfect how you are as a student and not really how well you memorize ecological principles. Again, we're here to train you to be good scientists and good doctors. And then, of course, we want to inspire you to be engaged and service-driven citizens. Um, we've seen how climate change has drastically affected our country and also different parts of the planet. We've been getting stronger typhoons. It's been causing a lot of physical damage to our infrastructure. It's endangering lives. It's endangering health. Right now, if you've been seeing social media, you might be seeing whispers, anxious whispers of possibly another pandemic coming up. And this is all related to changes that we're seeing in the environment. And we hope that we can all end up being, a set of people who are there to help, who are there to assist, who are there to help improve the situation of the world, and not just be reactive people who are consistently angry and depressed. We want to be agents of change and agents of hope. And a lot of this is based on how we can use our analytical skills to figure out where in the situation we can be of most help. Then, of course, we hope that you can be virtue guided decision makers. our country is not very STEM-philic. A lot of the Filipino people are not comfortable with the concept of science and technology, with engineering, with mathematics. We are intelligent phobic. We proceed with smart shaming. And I believe a lot of this is linked to the fact that for the longest time, the field of STEM has been sitting in an ivory tower. We act as if we're better than everybody else. But in order for us to maximize the effectiveness of the field that we're studying, we have to let virtue guide us, to make sure that the decisions we're making in the research that we're doing is something that will impact the greater good, not just the few, not just the rich, but the many, those who are um, at the edges of society, the marginalized, yung mga nasa laylayan. And I hope that you use that to inspire you to be better students and to be better scientists and to be better doctors. But of course, at the end of the day, in order for you to get the degree, to get that license, to get to practice the profession that you're studying from, you also have to be technically competent. And so I guess that's where the hard part comes in, because a lot of the nitty-gritty details that make ecology complex and a little difficult is also the part that can give you bragging rights in the future, that yeah, I know how to do this because I'm a scientist, I learned it, I was trained for it. And yeah, so there, that's those are the guidelines for the journey that we're going to be doing. And just to make sure that, almost 30 minutes into our class, you're still awake, could you guys give me a heart reaction just to show me you're still awake and that you're ready for this journey of ecology for the rest of the term? Okay. Ayun, gising pa sila. Glad. 69 students out of 88 lang ang gising. De, joke lang. I know some of you might still be figuring out where the buttons are for Zoom, and some of you are still waking up. But I'm glad to see majority of our students are paying attention. So this is our learning plan. Very straightforward, right? Again, we've reduced our topics to 4 modules, mostly because the Ecology PLC believes that rather than go wide with the topics that we're covering, we want to go deeper in some of the essential topics in ecology that we believe would be most useful for you. So for the first part of the term, we will be focusing on the scientific method. Second part is on evolutionary ecology, which is a little more straightforward. Pretty exciting things will be happening in the lab. And then we'll go to population ecology. This is a lot more computational. So I know math has a tendency to send people into panic, but if you learn to befriend math, if you make math your friend, you can end up being very, very powerful as a scientist, as a doctor, because math really opens up a lot of doors, especially when you want to prove yourself right. And then, of course, we'll go to systems ecology, which ideally would be simple after population ecology. Now, a lot of the core information that you need to understand about these subjects are already contained in pre-recorded lectures that are available in Space. So right now, Module 1 is visible to you, and you can actually start watching all of them if you want. So you can do it at a self-paced manner. But later, I will be showing you a recommended timeline, especially for those of you who might feel a little overwhelmed by the amount of information that is available. And our synchronous classes are designed so that you can use it to consult with your faculty in charge regarding certain information in the videos that you think are confusing, that you want to connect with the laboratory courses, or you want to connect with things you watched in the news or you've read in a scientific article. Um, We also have some activities, some interactive activities that we've designed for you to emphasize some of the key learnings that you should have per module. Of course, one of those interactive activities would be quizzes, carrot on the stick, to help train you for the four long exams and the comprehensive finals that we will be having for this subject. By the way, if at any point throughout this lecture you feel like you need to ask a question, please don't hesitate to unmute and ask. Ecology, both lecture and lab, operates in our ability to hear your questions. We prefer it if you ask it vocally rather than typing it in the chat so that everybody in class gets to hear the inquiry, because, at the end of the day, it's possible that it's not just you who has that question. So, a question unasked is the only wasted question there is. No, there are no stupid questions. Not unless it's about an instruction that I just said a few seconds ago. Like, Miss, paano po mag-ask ng question? Pwede po bang i-type sa chat? Kakasabi ko lang, when you want to ask a question or make a statement, feel free to unmute and get my attention, get our attention, and ask. Okay, that's our preferred way of you asking questions. We hope that you're paying attention. Okay. Anyway, to give you an overview of the four modules that we have, the first module is on the scientific method. So its emphasis is on capacitating you to be able to analyze and interpret data, to do experimental design properly. So we want you to be able to create good experiments and to analyze and interpret the data that comes from those experiments. So the main text for this one, the highlight of ecology, is the 1984 paper by Hurlburt. We know it's old, but it's a goodie. John Bueno, go ahead.
Ma'am, may I ask po if yung mga lectures po dito sa Canva, sa modules tab po, yung lectures 1 to 7 is if ito na po yung sakop ng LE1 po?
Yes, it is.
Sige po, thank you po.
Okay, thank you for asking that question also, John. But again, apart from the lectures that are recorded in lectures 1 to 7, we also have supplementary texts and a textbook. But for module 1, what will help you fully understand the importance of the scientific method is Hurlburt 1984. This is not the easiest paper to read. I was asked to read this when I was taking up my PhD. Yes, graduate students are also asked to read this paper. It's an oldie, but a definite goodie. So you might want to pace yourself when you're trying to read Hurlburt. When you read it, you have to be ready to take down notes. Some of the best notes I've taken on Hurlburt is when I draw diagrams. I try to figure out what he means. So pace yourself in such that baka it will take you 1 to 3 readings before you finish the text of Hurlburt. But I would like to emphasize that you will not pass long exam 1 if you don't understand Hurlburt. This is not a threat. This is a motherly advice. You will not pass long exam 1 if you don't understand Hurlburt. So you have to dedicate a significant amount of your energy into trying to understand Hurlburt. And if you cannot understand a certain portion, that's why we have our synchronous sessions for you to ask me those questions, for you to ask Sir Dennis those questions. But apart from Hurlburt, Module 1 also has 2 other readings that you need to read. These are not suggestions, just for fun. We need you to read it. There's the paper of Cumming et al. This is useful for both lecture and lab in order for you to have knowledge on the numbers, the quantitative methods that we need to assess the accuracy and precision of our experiments. in order for us to visualize significant differences, which you might have heard a lot about in statistics. And then Feliciano et al. Is a very good paper that shows the application of the scientific method on the very critical issue of monitoring our coral reefs to make sure that they do not disappear for the future generations. But just to make sure or just to check, alam ko dapat required ito, pero gusto ko lang i-check. Can you put your hand up, your virtual hand up, if you've taken up statistics in college before this term? Okay, again, for those who have taken up statistics in college before this term, can you put your hand up, please? Hand up, not thumbs up. Raise your hand. As in, kunwari magre-recite ka. So I'm just gonna scroll through our student list to check. Okay. Oops, sorry. Check ko lang po Joel Rioma, Lilac Roseles, Maria Agbanawag, Anika Tobias, Bianca Umali, Faith Labagnoy, Felicity Clemencio. Just to confirm, hindi po kayo naka-hands up kasi hindi pa kayo nagsa-statistics? Again, just to confirm, the names I'm calling, hindi sila naka-hands up. Gusto ko lang pong i-confirm if hindi pa kayo nagsa-statistics. Kasi kung naka-hands up, nag-statistics na. Kung hindi kayo naka-hands up, ibig sabihin hindi pa kayo nagsa-statistics. Maria, Faith, can you unmute just to confirm kung nag-stat na kayo o hindi? Maria Agbanawag and Faith Labagnoy.
Miss.
Mhm.
Hello, Miss.
Hi.
No pa po.
No
No,
pa.
not yet, Miss. Yes.
Okay, how about you, Faith? Faith Labagnoy? Hello? Hello? Faith? Okay, Faith, if you're having issues with your audio, maybe you can send us a message in chat. But by the way, everybody, every once in a while, we will call your attention randomly just to check if you're still here. So Maria, thank you so much for unmuting and telling us about your situation. Okay, Faith, I hope you galawin mo ang baso because you might be marked cutting classes, which is equivalent to absence if all of a sudden you stop reacting to the lectures that we're having. Okay? Ayun, nag-raise na ng kamay si Faith. So, nakapag-take na siya ng statistics. So, thank you for that. You can all put your hands down now. Okay, thank you. So, we just needed to know who has taken up biostat before and who hasn't. For those of you who still have your hands up, it could be assumed that you're going to ask a question. So I'll count down 5 seconds. If your hands are still up, I'll call your name and ask you to ask us the question. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So ayan. Ako naman daw yung nagtaas ng kamay. Paano ko nagawa yun? Hindi ko nga makita yung reactions. Anyway. Technology. So, okay. Now, let's talk about Module 2. So, Module 2 is on evolutionary ecology. What I love about this is among a lot of our lessons, this one is very much interrelated to what I was studying for my PhD. And there are a lot of molecular techniques that allow this to be done. So the core concepts of evolutionary ecology will require you to understand Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium deeper, to understand what fitness means, the concepts of niche and competition. We'll have a very interactive session in lecture where I will need to use the 4 walls of the classroom to illustrate something. And in this case, in order for this to be a lot more relevant to our future medical doctors in the class, we will be tackling the concept of evolutionary medicine. So we hope that you can read the paper on the salt shaker's curse as well as sweet death that will be available in Module 2 once it's published. And then we will be also talking about birds, specifically Geospiza, which is the organism that was originally studied by a lot of our evolutionary um, scientists. Okay. Hindi ko talaga ma-figure out paano tanggalin yung hand up ko. Raise hand. Wait lang. Never mind. Lower all hands. There you go. Okay. Now, when it comes to population ecology, so I've already mentioned math earlier. I will mention it again. This part of our module contains or will require you to learn some formula. It's not a lot, but it could be intimidating at the start. In the lab, you will be taught how to compute for it using Microsoft Excel. But eventually, after learning how to compute for it in Microsoft Excel, we need you to be able to compute for it using just a scientific calculator. And this is because of the need for, just quick quick checks on formula. Very much useful for your future NMAT and other exams. But in terms of other real world applications, the math that will teach you on population ecology will help you understand why certain populations are expanding, certain populations are contracting, its potential impact on our lifespans, its potential impact on the amount of resources that are being dedicated to healthcare, the number of hospitals that we have available, and so on and so forth. So all of these things has a practical effect on the field of public health. And so for those of you who are interested in learning more about that field or in pursuing that field in the future, then Module 3 would be a good introduction to that. And then finally, when it comes to systems ecology, it emphasizes how no single ecosystem is isolated or separated from the other. If you've heard of the butterfly effect, of course, it's a little bit of an exaggeration. What it says is basically that the flap of the wings in one part of the planet can cause or can create a hurricane in another part of the planet. Of course, there are other factors that build upon that, but systems ecology will help you appreciate these kinds of processes and also be able to quantify it. And it's very useful, especially in the field of environmental planning, because it helps us understand that if, for example, a certain farm uses up a certain amount of fertilizer or pesticide, how much of this is actually being used up in the farm and how much of it ends up being run off to other places that are surrounding that area. And then beyond that, how much of those chemicals are traveling to different oceans or different bodies of water all over the world. Uh, mm, Perhaps you've heard, I hope, of how we're the number one contributor to plastic pollution in the world. Sad, no? Sa dami-dami ng pwedeng maging number one, dun pa. So we're the number one plastic polluter in the world. And understanding where this plastic pollution comes from, the types of plastic waste that we're producing, and how it transfers from one ecosystem to the next is at the root of the better implementation of the EPR law, which has recently been passed, na supposedly magko-control sa plastic pollution problem natin sa Philippines. Okay? So we'll be looking at how different resources are passed on from one link of the ecosystem to the other. We'll discuss limiting nutrients and how this affects the productivity of different ecosystems. We'll look at how energy is created and transferred. Please note that when we say creation of energy, how it's introduced into a system, because one of the core principles of physics is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Instead, it's transferred into different forms. So how energy is introduced into a system and how it's transferred and so on. Now, of course, a lot of you are very much interested, how will I be graded from all of these things that we will be doing? Well, the grading system for ecology is broken down into 4 major components. We will have 4 long exams, and this will make up 50% of your grade. We will also have online, maybe physical, some announced, some unannounced quizzes that will make up 10% of your grade. Okay. We will have class discussions and class participation. This will make up 5% of your grade. By the way, for class participation, Sir Dennis and I will not be the only ones to grade you on this. Your participation in lab classes are also factored in lecture because of the deep integration between lecture and lab classes. So your lab faculty can vouch for your performance for class participation in lecture. But some of the best ways to make sure your class participation grade is maximized is for you to recite or ask questions in lecture. Napakarami po nating meetings throughout the term. Sana marinig ko yung boses nyo at least once. And trust me, yung pagpaparinig nyo ng boses nyo sa akin ng kahit isang beses ay napakalaki na ang pwedeng maging impact sa class participation grade nyo. And, there are situations when every little thing helps. That tiny interaction that we might have can end up helping you greatly in order to get your target grade for this course. And then, of course, we'll have a comprehensive final exam, which is 35% of your final grade. Okay? Now, in order for me to rest my voice a little bit, do you have any questions or points of clarification so far regarding our modules, our grading system? So earlier, we've already been asked, ano po yung coverage ng first long exam? Yes, it's the 7 lectures in long exam 1, but apart from that, the readings also. Carlo, go ahead.
Good morning po. I just like to ask lang then if it works in the same way na parang the lab performance will affect the lecture, would that also imply that the lecture performance would also affect the lab?
Oh, that's a good question. It's less, the impact is less, but it could still impact your lab. So for example, if you're like very active in lab, pero hindi ka namin nararamdaman in lecture, since the Ecology PLC meets every week, hindi ko alam, clingy kami sa isa't isa. That feedback could reach your lab faculty, and it could also affect your class participation grade in lab. Although most of the times, the effect of that is your lab teacher would have a tendency to like, kamustahin ka, huy, magsalita ka sa lecture kasi nabanggit sa amin, hindi ka nagpa-perform. So, it's not really a system for punishment, more of a system to make sure na baka naman kasi naubusan ka ng opportunity sa lecture magsalita, kaya baka sa lab ka nagsasalita, pero yun nga, we interact closely with each other. So, thank you for asking that question, Carlo.
Thank you po.
Okay. Other questions? Go ahead, Andrea.
Good morning po, Miss Doc. Um, yung concern ko lang po kasi is I already passed yung lab class, so I'm just taking the lecture this term. So I'm just wondering how that would reflect on my case po or others who also have the same case.
Thank you for asking, Andrea. I think that's a very relevant question to ask. If that's the case, most likely if your previous lab faculty is still part of the ECO PLC, most likely they still remember you. So every once in a while they comment. But I guess the biggest impact is there is a higher pressure for you to recite and participate in lecture activities just to make sure that we know you're here, you're participating, and you're eager to learn. Does that help, Andrea?
Yes po. Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions? Okay, so I guess if none, baka nag-iisip pa po yung iba. Again, at any point in our class, you can raise your hand and ask questions. So I would like to remind everybody of your first homework. This is graded for lecture. In lab, it's not exactly graded, but if you don't submit it in lab, you will get deductions in your class participation. So make sure to finish this within the week. We want to get to know who you are. And sometimes in plenary classes, it's a little bit more difficult to do so. So I hope you can introduce yourselves to me, to Sir Dennis and I, using a PowerPoint slide with the following details. So this is, there is a function in Microsoft PowerPoint to add audio to your slide. So it's just a short recording. Make sure to put a photo of yourself. It could be a screenshot as long as it's good quality. And please make sure it's a photo of you that we would easily recognize. So like, not a photo na kalahati lang na mukha niyo kita, or photo niyo na naka-cosplay kayo so hindi namin ma-recognize. Use a photo that will help us recognize you on a day-to-day basis. Wag naman picture nung debut nyo kasi, ay, naka-long gown siya everyday, ganerms. Wag ganun ha. Yung photo, again, that will help me recognize you better. Your full name, your ID number and nickname, your major, so human biology, I guess, in your case, your career goal, what kind of doctor you want to be in the future, your background and interests. And when you're saving the Microsoft PowerPoint slide, so minimum of one slide. If you want to do more than one slide, that's perfectly fine, as long as this information are there. So use your nickname, so underscore nickname underscore and ID number. So it's gonna be underscore nickname underscore ID number. So for example, if it's me, underscore Chona underscore 9705262 because that's my ID number. Iba yung number system kasi pag faculty. So yun yung magiging file name. Okay, and then upload it in Space in the corresponding assignment tab. Don't panic if pag view nyo siya using the Space viewer, wala na siyang audio, naging PDF na siya. Don't worry about it. When we download it, it's still gonna be in PowerPoint and the audio will still be there. So we've received so many messages in the past na, Miss, I'm so sorry, nung in-upload ko po yung Excel, naging PDF siya. It's because from the student view, kinocompress ni Space yung file size, but from the faculty end, we can still access the PowerPoint file. So as long as you uploaded it as a PowerPoint file, we will receive it as a PowerPoint file. Okay, but please do not upload it as a PDF file, because if you upload it as a PDF file, then the audio will not be there. Okay, so again, please do not forget your first homework. Thumbs up if this is clear. Otherwise, unmute to ask your questions about it. Thumbs up if it's clear. Huwag niyo kakalimutan, guys, ha? Sayang yung points. I swear. This has a deadline. The deadline is in Space. If you do not submit it by the deadline, grabe, 0 agad. Ang dali-dali na nga. Hindi pa nagawa. Okay. Please take note of the message that Sir Dennis has put in the chat. Again, looking forward to seeing these submissions. Okay. Now let's go through some class policies. So in order for you to maximize your experience here in ecology lecture, actually even in ecology lab, you have to come to class ready. First off, you have to be awake, so please drink your coffee. Make sure you've slept beforehand. You've watched some of the videos for the lecture. Again, you can do this completely self-paced, but later I will show you a suggested schedule to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed, but you also finish everything before the first long exam. And if you have questions, to have your questions ready. Now, when you're doing self-paced learning, bago ko sabihin yon, bakit namin dinesign yung module ng ganito? Well, first off, ever since the pandemic, um, the Commission on Higher Education operates in such that pag nawala ng pasok, instead na maglagay ng makeup classes, we are expected to proceed with asynchronous sessions. Now, if you're not ready for those kinds of things, if we're all set up na lahat ng lessons natin ay nangyayari lang kapag synchronous session, then that makes us vulnerable na magka-cram or magdidikit-dikit lahat ng lessons, lahat ng activities sa dulo. So to make us less vulnerable to this new policy, this new implementation that we're receiving, we are giving you all the lessons as early as now so that you can decide how to pace your own learning. And we use the synchronous sessions instead to allow you more contact hours with us during class hours so that you can clarify the things that are confusing you, that are making the subject a little bit more difficult. Apart from that, a lot of our students are either going to go to med school or grad school. And in the case of both these types of higher learning, a lot of your teacher will be expecting you to know how to study independently. Like a lot of the lessons in med school is, okay, read chapters 8 to 20 before next meeting, come to class, and then magle-lecture yung teacher, pero basically lahat ng lessons nandun sa chapters 8 to 20. Tapos masyashock ka na lang the next meeting, exam na. So we have to slowly introduce you to that kind of system also to help you build up your resilience. Para hindi naman kayo magugulat, med school, ganito. Well, that's how it is, no? First, by the way, I would just like to make sure that you know, I salute you for choosing this program. We need more doctors. We need more medical practitioners here in the Philippines. And I do hope you stay in the Philippines. But if not, it's okay. I'll respect you pa rin. It's not an easy path. It's a very, very difficult path. We would like to be there for you to help you transition in this difficult path. I wish we could make it easier for you, but that's just not possible because of how complicated living systems are. So we're here for you. Okay, we're not here to make it difficult. It's difficult by nature, but we're here to help train you, to help build your resilience in order for you to be able to not just survive, but thrive in this field. Okay. So anyway, apart from that, when you're watching some of these lectures, when you're reading some of the journal articles or articles that we've uploaded, may mga parts na parang, ano to? Ano daw? We hope that you can make use of the internet or your textbook. I'll introduce your textbook later for immediate reference during the time that you're watching them. So parang, hala, anong ibig sabihin ng word na to? Kesa hintayin yung magkita tayo ulit bago nyo tanungin yung meaning ng word na yon, i-google nyo naman, be. Ang bilis na mag-google na parang, okay, yun pala yung definition niya. Pero if magulo pa rin yung definition after nyo siyang i-google, then go ahead. Feel free to ask me. Pero you have to build those muscles that will allow you to uncover information that you need from all the resources that you have. Okay? Kasi hindi kayo isa-spoon feed sa med school, hindi kayo isa-spoon feed pag doktor na kayo sa hospital. You need to be lifelong learners in the sense that you need to know where to get the information that you need. Next, honesty and integrity are some of the things I believe is present in all of my students. Um, when you cheat, sure, it can help you with your score, but you always have to ask yourselves if it's worth it. Like, natututunan ko ba yung dapat kong matutunan pag nag-cheating ako? Ano yung magiging consequences pag nahuli ako? Because remember, cheating is punishable by expulsion. Kung hindi ka man ma-expel, nagkukwentuhan ang faculty, hindi lang ng College of Science, but across different colleges. Gusto mo ba na ang reputation mo ay tainted ng accusations, if not actual practices of cheating? I've had class lists of students pre-marked already. Kasi ay tong bata na to, nahuli ko yan nagsa-cellphone habang nagko-quiz. Itong bata na to, nagbabago siya ng sagot pag ganito. On one hand, naawa ako dun sa bata kasi kesa ma-recognize ko siya as a unique individual whom I can learn from and who can learn from me, una ko agad kita sa kanya is, okay, cheater tong person na to. Is that really something you want to risk? Diba? And then, on the other hand, do you think cheating will make you a better professional? Do you think cheating will make you a better doctor? Sobrang hindi to connected, pero I it's January, sorry. My father's birthday is on January 30, but that it makes me a little bit more aware of it for the whole month. I'm a papa's girl. I love my dad so much, but my dad is not with us any longer. He passed away when I was just 18 years old. And I tell my pre-med students this story a lot kasi hindi ko alam bakit hindi pa rin ako over sa kanya. My dad first started complaining of pain in his stomach for several weeks. He went to the doctor, the usual doctor that he sees in the hospital in the province where we live. And ang sinasabi ng doctor is, empacho lang yan, indigestion. So he gave my father fiber supplements, nag-recommend ng ibang diets, and so on. And my dad's an engineer. He's a he's a STEM advocate. So sinusunod niya yung doctor, pero hindi nawawala yung symptoms. After, I think, 4 weeks ng pabalik-balik sa same doctor, nag-decide na yung family na, okay, let's get a different opinion. Pero hindi sila nagpapanik kasi nga, indigestion lang naman daw eh. They went to a different hospital in Manila. And after ma-check nung doctor agad si Papa, biglang ang dami niyang bagong tests na pinapagawa, which started making my mom panic. And then within a few days, after siyang ma-confine dun sa bagong hospital, inoperahan siya, stage 4, colon cancer. And after a few days, wala na akong tatay. Wala na si Papa. And I always ask myself, ano yung meron dun sa unang doctor niya? Paano niya na-diagnose paulit-ulit ng indigestion yung symptoms ng father ko? Isn't it na pag medical doctor ka, aware ka dapat sa responsibility mo sa patients mo? And one of your key responsibilities is to lessen the chances that a daughter will lose her father. So because of that, I take my responsibility as a pre-med teacher very seriously. I don't want my students to become murderers in the future. Kasi isn't that murder? Ay, sorry po, aksidente lang. Akala namin indigestion, colon cancer na pala. Can you afford to make that kind of mistake when you are responsible for the lives of the people visiting you? And that's why I am warning you against cheating. Because it might seem trivial. It might seem like it's no big deal. But you have to trust the process. And the process is, even if it feels like ecology, ano bang kwenta nito sa pagiging doktor ko, may connection siya. If not, to give you the right training and exposure to be a lifelong learner. Okay? Mahirap siya. Alam ko, guys. Mahirap talaga siya. But you did not choose an easy profession to be in. Okay? So anyway, we will be implementing the policies on academic honesty, on attendance, on behavior, as indicated in your student handbook. So I hope that we can all practice respect in our class, not just with your faculty, but among your peers as well. Please note that tardiness is not being in the classroom within the first 15 minutes of class. And you will be marked absent if you're not in the classroom within the first 30 minutes of class. Ano pa ba? Pwede kayong magkaroon ng automatic failure if you gain more than 5 meetings of unexcused absences. What else? Yeah, a lot of this information are available in our student handbook, which I hope you will maximize. Please note also that the duration of the term begins today and ends during the grade consultation day. And you have to be available for both synchronous and asynchronous sessions throughout that. So for example, if you're planning, I don't know, a family trip, if there are weddings or birthdays in the horizon, a lot of those things are not considered excused absences. So try to schedule them outside of that term, or, during weekends, or be ready to risk being absent. May minus ang pagiging absent, but it's not the end of the world. We won't be judging you for it as long as you're honest with us. But please note that you cannot have your cake and eat it too. So know your priorities and know that your actions have their own counterpart consequences. And once again, we would like to remind everyone that attentiveness and active participation are critical to successful learning. Huwag mema lang. Okay, so yun. Ha, try nating. Once again, if you have questions or points of clarification, we appreciate it if you can unmute. Thea, can you perhaps ask your question out loud so your classmates can hear it?
Oh, okay. Hi, Doc. I read from the syllabus book that, and you just discussed in that no makeup quizzes will be given regardless of the excuse. Does this apply to like mga approved absences like medical reasons po?
Yes, thank you for asking that, Thea. That's a very good question. Yes, no makeup quizzes will be given even if it's an approved absence. What will happen instead is the denominator for your quizzes will be adjusted. So for example, let's say we have 10 quizzes this term, but you miss one because of a medical reason, and you sent me and Sir Dennis a copy of the approved medical forms. Then, for example, if it's 10 points per quiz, over 100 dapat siya, yung sa'yo magiging over 90. So the denominator will be adjusted instead of a makeup quiz being given. Does that clarify it, Thea?
Yes, Doc. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, other questions, everyone, for regarding class policies? Okay, sige, again, may time pa naman. Here is your textbook, Ecology, Concepts and Applications by Anna Scher and Manuel. I do not know how to pronounce this. Wag naman Moles. Sad. Mole. Junior. So it's a very good textbook that will help you with some of the basic definitions of the different modules that we have. It's particularly useful. Ako, for me, sobrang useful siya sa population ecology tsaka evolutionary ecology. Kasi pag yung scientific method, sobrang useful for me si Hurlbert. But there are still principles of the scientific method in this textbook. This can be purchased online as an ebook. Sir Dennis, are you familiar if this can be purchased as hard copy sa National Bookstore?
Hello. So far we have not heard dito sa campus. I think it's not yet available.
So,
But we have
ebook.
yes, ebook is available from
Mhm.
the publisher,
Okay.
McGill.
Okay. So you can search the ebook version of it online. McGraw-Hill, tama, Sir Dennis?
Yes, from McGraw-Hill.
Okay, from McGraw-Hill. So, oh, okay. According to Lai, it's available as a physical book, but you have to order it abroad. So it might take a while for you to receive it. So for those of you who prefer to, you know, have it tangible with you, it might be a little difficult to get one. But if, oh no, this is a recorded session, right? Um, coming from UP, minsan we get the PDF version or we pay for the PDF version and then have it printed because we have this old shopping center before it got burnt down where they would print out the whole book and then hard bound it pa afterwards so it feels like a real textbook. I don't think that's legal. So I'm not really promoting it. I'm just saying it's possible or we used to do it. And I think the statute for punishing me for it has already passed because it's been a while since I was an undergrad student. But you find your ways and means to make learning more accessible and useful for you. But for me, that was what I did before. Yun. We're not familiar with how much it costs right now, kung ano yung recent costs. But Sir Dennis, do you remember how much it was before?
No, I forgot. Medyo expensive lang. But the e-copy yata is more cheaper.
Yeah,
Much cheaper
yeah,
compared to the physical book.
yeah. Pero yun, super, super, super useful textbook. Okay, so next. Okay, now I move on to some of the, I guess, just an emphasis on some of the core principles of Module 1. So again, it's about scientific method, sampling, and experimental design. After ecology, the word sampling, nakaka-trigger siya sa mga students namin. So all 7 lectures, yung ibang lectures may part 1, part 2, by the way. And all the readings are already available in Animo Space. I've had a student before who finished everything in one day. Like, wow, amazing. But for those of us who are more grounded on planet Earth, here is a suggested possible schedule that you can do to make Module 1 a little bit more tolerable or a little bit more durable, doable. Okay? So, these are the dates that will cover Module 1. You might see that Jan 9 is red. It's already been announced. January 9 would be the translation um, of the Nazarene, of the Holy Nazarene. So we won't have face-to-face classes this week. Sayang, naka-ready pa naman yung outfit of the day ko. But anyway, after our lecture today, I hope you can start watching lecture 1 if you haven't already. And maybe start reading Hurlbert between January 6 to January 9. At least half, maybe a third. Again, brace yourself. It's not gonna be an easy read. Promise. Oh, mga kaklase ko dati sa PhD, nagsasabunutan kami pa. Magising ka, basahin mo si Hurlbert. Napaka-important niya. But I swear, if you learn from Hurlbert, you're gonna be a really good scientist. So start reading Hurlbert. be ready to have like a piece of paper or your tablet with you to notes to write down the diagrams and take down notes. What's important about Hurlburt would be definition and also systems, processes. How do you do this? What is a replicate? What differentiates a replicate from a subsample? So yun yung mga things na kailangan yung makuha kay Hurlburt. And then on January 9, by all means, please sleep in, get as much rest as you need, but find the time to watch Lecture 2. Lecture 2 is 2 parts also. It's not very long. Take down notes, especially the questions you need to ask us. And then, ideally, sana matapos niyo yung Hurlburt during the first week. Not fully understand Hurlburt, pero yung unang pasada niyo sa kanya. By the following week, on January 13, that's a Monday, we'll have our first quiz. So, ang coverage ng first quiz is lectures 1 and 2, sort of. So, if you've read lectures 1 and lectures 2, I think you'll do well for quiz 1. When we do our synchronous sessions, we'll be having an actual activity, but for the most part, if you have questions about lectures 1 and 2 in Hurlburt, that's the best meeting to ask it. I'll be assigning you a homework on that day. It's not a graded homework per se. So parang, okay, hindi naman pala graded. Whatever. Joke. Wag ganun ha. Gawin niyo siya kasi I think it's a fun homework, especially for those of you who are outdoorsy people. And for those of you who are not outdoorsy people, it might inspire you to be outdoorsy. It's fun. And then watch lecture 3. I swear, watching lecture 3 before your exercise 2 activity in lab would be very, very, very useful. Lalo na sa anong tawag dito? Sa quiz nyo sa lab. Sobrang useful niya. Kasi may quizzes din tayo sa lab. Haha. Spoiler alert. And then on Jan 16, our actual first face-to-face session, please, John, go ahead.
May I ask po if yung mga quizzes po is online? Ay, may face-to-face. Never mind po.
Yeah, it's a mix, John. So pwedeng face-to-face, pwedeng online. Depende sa modality natin. So halo-halo siya. It's not just one type. For Jan 16, yun nga dahil technically ang synchronous sessions ay consultation, ask about questions ng lecture, Hurlburt. Some of you might be asked to present homework, which is very good for your class participation. After this, you might want to watch lecture 4, super useful for lab also, and read Coming. Coming is also essential for you to interpret your data well in lab. So lalabas na siya sa exam sa lecture, pero kakailanganin niyo rin siya para magkagawa kayo ng magagandang tables and interpretation ng data niyo sa lab. By Jan 20, again, tanong lang ng tanong sa class, may mga activities din tayo. Watch lecture 5 afterwards. Start nyo nang i-review si Hurlburt. Kung hindi siya ganun ka-clear sa first reading, basahin nyo siya ulit after ng mga discussions na ginagawa natin sa class kasi baka lumilinaw na siya. And then, by January 23, again, synchronous classes, consultation, activities. Then watch lecture 6 afterwards and read Feliciano. Feliciano will be very useful for exercise 3 in lab. And then quiz 3, third quiz is on Jan 27. I think this will be online kasi online ang modality natin. Then ask questions about lectures, about Hurlburt, Coming, Feliciano, etc. And then watch lecture 7. Jan 30 and Feb 3, you have to be actively reviewing for your first long exam na. Huwag kayong mag-ilusyon na kakayanin yung mag-review ng first long exam ng isang beses lang. As early as Jan 20, nire-review nyo na dapat si Hurlburt. Then by Jan 30, nagre-review na kayo by looking at different experimental designs, like magtanong-tanungan kayo, tapos i-identify nyo ano yung replicate, ilan yung replicates, and so on. So magpa-practice na kayo dapat with each other. And on Feb 3, we'll try to do a review session during lecture to help prepare you for your first long exam on Feb 6. Okay. As early as now, I'll announce some key principles on your first long exam to make sure na hindi tayo parang headless chicken at the start of the exam. You know what a headless chicken is? Uh, pag kinakatay ang manok, pag tinanggal niyo yung head niya, yung katawan niya, pag hindi mo hinawakan, pwede pang magtatakbo around. So, para siyang nagpapanik. It's a little freaky, a little traumatic for me. But anyway, so that we don't end up being like headless chickens on February 6th, please note that number one, for the long exams, it's better if you use pencil. We will not stop you if you want to use a ball pen, but it's better to use a pencil because you can erase your answers. So you need to bring a pencil, preferably a number 2 pencil, a number 2 Mongol pencil. I'm not sponsored. I wish I was. Then I would be richer. But I'm not. Number 2 Mongol pencil with a good eraser. You'll probably need a scientific calculator. Just have that ready, just in case. No need for scratch paper. You can write on the questionnaire. You will be asked to write your name, ID number, and possibly also your seatmates on the questionnaire, just so we can cross-reference for the possibilities of cheating. You will need a folder. The folder is for you to cover your answers, and again, to minimize the chances of cheating. And when you arrive in the classroom, you will be asked to sit at the right most available seat per row, meaning to leave the leftmost seats free for the latecomers. So I will be repeating these instructions close to the first long exam, but in the hopes that it will settle faster into your minds and memories, I'm just making some of these announcements as early as now. Okay. Questions and points of clarification for our schedule for Module 1? Carlo, go ahead.
Good morning po. I just like to clarify whether the exams in general would be done through Scantron, yung parang multiple choice, or are we supposed to bring a pencil kasi yung format or something? Well, I'll just revert to my original question. Would the exams be formatted mostly through Scantron po ba or no naman?
Your long exams, since it's plenary classes, your long exams are designed to be done via Scantron, so we can give you your scores as quickly as possible. Does that answer your question, Carlo?
Yes po. Thank you po.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Now, in the future, when you're going to be asking about questions for lecture, these are some of the formats that we hope to get from you. It would be nice that instead of asking basic definition questions or what or who, you ask us about explanations like, bakit po nagkaganon? Paano po siya nangyari? Ano po ba yung main idea ng statement na ito? Or, pag sinabi po to ni Hurlbert, ito po ba yung ibig sabihin niya? And yes, you can ask in Filipino, ha? I mean, siguro kung nandyan si Doc Sam, pwede kayo mag-ask in Bisaya, but I don't understand Bisaya, so I'm sorry. I'm learning, so, you can teach me some Bisaya words if you want. But yeah, you can ask in English, you can ask in Filipino. Pwede nyo ring tanungin na, Miss, dun po sa isang paper ni Hurlbert, sinabi niya ganito, ganyan. Meron pa po bang ibang example nito na applicable sa atin? Or pag po ba nilagay natin siya sa lab, ganito po ba siya? And by the way, don't make Sir Dennis and I answer your lab homeworks, ha? Pag may pinatanong sa inyo yung lab teacher nyo, wag yung tatanungin sa amin, tapos pag sisagot nyo sa kanila, ay yun po kasi yung sabi ni Doc Chona or ni Sir Dennis. Bawal yun, ha? Ask us about the difference of certain things, how one affects the other, similarities, how is our lesson related to, let's say, the new policy on um, municipal fishing, tinanggal na yung municipal waters, ano yung magiging impact nun sa mga tao. You can ask us about those things. So those are the kinds of questions that we hope to hear from you rather than, Miss, ano po ito? Kasi kadalasan lahat ng basic questions ay nandun na sa video. And you can also use your textbook or the internet to help answer those things. Pero kung gulong-gulo na talaga kayo, Miss, ilang beses ko po ito binasa, hindi ko po talaga siya magets. Pwede po bang pa-explain? Yun. So, okay lang yun. Gusto namin yun. Okay? Okay. But when it comes to ecology, so it's actually two words fused into one, just like a lot of the fields of sciences that we encounter. For example, eco comes from I think it's the Greek word oikos, which means home or house. And logi comes from another Greek word, which means logos, or another Greek word called logos, which is the study of. So literally translated, ecology means the study of our home, the study of our house, the study of where we live in. Now, the term ecology was first coined by Ernst Haeckel during the late 1800s. He was the first one to use the word ecology. And what's cool about Ernst Haeckel is he's usually described as a naturalist, but he studies marine ecosystems. He's actually a marine biologist, so that's pretty cool. A founding father of ecology, loves the ocean. He's also an artist, by the way. He draws a lot of the organisms he sees, and they're amazing. They're so beautiful. Why are these ancient geniuses making us feel so kulang? The joke lang. They're amazing. But if you go through the history of sciences, there are so many definitions of ecology that is available. For example, one of the earliest accepted definition of ecology is that it looks at how many organisms and how they're distributed. But this was eventually debunked or it was eventually judged as an incomplete definition because we're not just looking at living things when we study ecology, but we also look at the different non-living things, the different abiotic factors that they interact with. So one of the more modern definitions of ecology by Odum, and Odum is one of our well-respected ecology experts to the day. He made one of the more iconic ecology textbooks, is that when we study ecology, we look at the environment and we treat it as if it's a house. It hosts living things. And when we look at it, we look at the living things inside it, the different processes involved in making sure that the organisms inside it are alive. And of course, both the living and non-living components of those processes that make the house functional. So again, both living and non-living things, and we look at how they maintain the status of living. But I guess one of the more modern definitions of ecology comes from Bush, not the former president, no, the scientist Bush, is that it's the branch of science, not just necessarily biology, but science in general, that looks at the relationships of living things, so their relationship with each other, but also to their environment. And when we use the term environment, it refers to, again, both the living and non-living things that are surrounding us. So the main thing that we hope you can get from that definition is how ecology is not just about living things. It's about both living and non-living things, and it focuses a lot on interactions. So not just isolated events or isolated organisms. Now, ecology is often mistaken for or is often associated with other fields of sciences, such as, for example, natural history. I hope you visited the Museum of Natural History of the National Museum of the Philippines. It's very, very beautiful. The entrance is free, and you'll get inspired and amazed at how many amazing organisms there are in the Philippines. But natural history works with ecology, but it's not ecology because when we talk about natural history, it's about habits, it's about behaviors and interactions of organisms in their natural environments. It's usually descriptive, meaning it doesn't test hypotheses, which is what we do in ecology. But of course, it's also still very important. It's not less than ecology. It's important because um, it gives us a background that we need in order to actually do ecological research. So kumbaga, it gives us the foundation for us to do ecological research. And then there's environmental science. Environmental science is related or works with ecology, but is also not ecology because environmental science is a little bit more human-centric. It's anthropocentric because it studies the effects of ecology. It studies ecological effects on human activities on the environment. So it's like, okay, this is what we do. These are the consequences, and this is what we should be doing in the future. So it's a little bit more applied, a little bit more us, human, rather than, humans as part of an ecosystem. And then there's also conservation biology. Again, it could be related to ecology, but it's not ecology. And this time, it uses the principles of ecology to help us understand, maintain, and manage biological diversity. Kasi when we do ecology, hindi naman tayo required mag-act to protect. Pero ang conservation biology, everything that you do is to protect. Okay? So, yun ang mga subtle differences. Now, all of this, together with ecology, is related to the concept of sustainability. So, it's one of the electives of our SEC program that I used to teach. Now I've passed it on to Sir Sam and Miss Hillary. Yes, Aliyah, go ahead.
May I ask a question po regarding the lecture videos po on the Canvas?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is stated there po na in the environmental science po na parang it is often associated with physics and chemistry as the basic sciences and engineering and environmental sciences applied. Can you explain it more further po? Kasi po medyo naguluhan po ako with that.
No problem. So going back to environmental science, since it focuses on human activities, we use chemistry and physics to measure the impact of our activities on the environment. So that's why that part, even biology, is all about understanding how humans affect nature and how nature affects humans. And then when we go to the engineering side, when we go to the technology side, it often creates innovations, practical products that help us, for example, lessen our carbon footprint, improve our sustainability. So it's the invention side of environmental science. So you can split it to theoretical, understanding the whys and the hows, and applied, which is the creation of interventions that improve our interaction with the environment. So does that help, Aliyah?
Yes po, thank you po.
No problem. Okay. So, oh my gosh, it's 9 a.m. So anyway, sustainability. Biglang bumilis yung pagsasalita kasi patapos na yung class. So it's about the ability of the Earth's various natural systems and human cultural systems and economies to thrive, to survive, and adapt to changing environmental conditions. So ecology plays a role on this because we can end up achieving it if we rely, for example, on more renewable resources, if we preserve biodiversity, and if we don't disrupt natural processes. So again, if you have a class immediately after this, please feel free to leave. We'll try to upload a copy of this recording. But for those who can stay, I would just like to present the scope of ecology. Some of our studies involve individuals. It can go as high as populations, communities, ecosystems level, biome, and biosphere. If you're curious about the definitions of these words, they are in your textbook, or a quick Google search can actually help you understand that. Now, when it comes to the scientific method, a lot of the things that you will learn from Module 1, from the different videos, is how good scientific experiments are designed to distinguish among alternative hypotheses. And one of the things that we want you to remember in ecology, kalimutan nyo na lahat except this. We are not in the business of proving things. We are in the business of disproving all possible explanations to a phenomenon until we are left with one that is most probable. So we can never show a hypothesis to be true. Never. We can only demonstrate or fail to demonstrate that it is false. Okay? And that's why when you're doing your statistics, you always have a pair instead of just one. Now, if you look at the scientific method as a process, so it first starts with creating good observations. So of course, may specified level of certainty yan, may tinatawag na gold standard. And it has to be repeated and replicated and verified by independent observers. And once you have that sound observation, the next step is to construct a hypothesis. So this provides us an explanation to the observed events, not a prediction, an explanation to the phenomenon we're seeing. The next step would be to test the hypothesis by further observations or the experiments that we're doing. And if the hypothesis holds up, if it's not disproven, it could be elevated to theory or law. If it's disproven, then you'll have to revise, discard, or create a new one. So in lecture 1 that I hope you can view after today's session, I hope you can try and figure out what is more feasible to show that not all swans are white, to prove that all swans are white. And then maybe you can figure out if bats prefer larger or smaller grasshoppers. Okay? So that's it for today's session. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for not leaving quickly. I will see you again Monday next week because once again, our Thursday classes has been suspended because of translation. Thank you very much, everybody. See you around. Bye-bye.
Thank you po.
Thank you.